Jake Martinez wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag. The maintenance bay on Nexus Point Station was quiet today. Most of the alien traders had left for their homeworlds after the morning market. Jake liked the quiet times. It gave him a chance to work on his projects without anyone asking questions. He was fixing a broken air filter when he heard the sound. Heavy footsteps, but not quite right. One foot landed harder than the other. Someone was hurt. Jake looked up from his workbench. Through the open door of his workshop, he saw her. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with dark blue skin that seemed to shine under the station lights. But what caught his attention was the armor. It looked alive. The black and silver material moved like it was breathing. Parts of it were cracked and bleeding a thick green liquid. She was Catherian. Jake had seen a few of them on the station before, but never this close. They were warriors, everyone knew that. They fought in the border wars against the Raider clans. Their armor was special. It lived with them, grew with them, protected them better than any machine could. This one was hurt bad. She leaned against the wall near his workshop door. Her breathing was heavy and slow. The green liquid from her armor dripped onto the metal floor. Jake could see pain in her golden eyes, though she tried to hide it. Jake put down his tools and walked toward her. She noticed him coming and straightened up, trying to look strong. Catherians never showed weakness to other species. Everyone on the station knew this. You need help, Jake said in simple words. He kept his voice soft and calm. The Catherian looked at him with surprise. I am fine, human, she said. Her voice was deep and rough, but Jake could hear the pain underneath. No, you're not fine, Jake said. He pointed at the green liquid on the floor. Your armor is bleeding. That's not fine. She followed his eyes to the green drops. For a moment, her strong face showed worry. Then she covered it up again. It will heal, she said. Jake shook his head. Not like that, it won't. I've seen bio-armor before. Not Catherian, but close enough. That green stuff? That means it's dying. The words hit her like a punch. Catherians and their armor lived together or died together. If her armor died, she would die too. Slowly and painfully. You know nothing about Catherian armor, she said, but her voice was less strong now. Jake nodded. You're right. I don't know much about your specific armor, but I know about living things that are hurt, and I know about fixing things. That's what I do. He gestured toward his workshop. Inside, she could see tables covered with tools, spare parts, and strange machines that Jake had built himself. Everything was organized, but not in the cold, perfect way of most alien workshops. This place felt warm, lived in. I am Zara, she said suddenly. It surprised them both. Catherians rarely gave their names to aliens. Jake, he replied with a small smile. Come inside. Let me take a look. Zara hesitated. Her people had rules about this. No alien had ever successfully worked on Catherian bioarmor. Most who tried ended up killing the armor and the warrior wearing it. The armor was too complex, too alive, too connected to the Catherian nervous system, but the green liquid was flowing faster now. She could feel her armor's pain like it was her own pain, because it was her own pain. If you touch my armor wrong, it will die, she said. If it dies, I die. Jake nodded seriously. I understand. But if I don't try to help, it might die anyway. Right? Zara looked down at her armor. The cracks were getting bigger. The green liquid was pooling at her feet. She could feel the armor's confusion and fear. It was scared and hurt like a wounded animal. Why would you help me? She asked. We barely know each other. If you make a mistake, you could be blamed for killing a Catherian warrior. That would bring trouble for you in this station. Jake shrugged. Because you need help. That's enough reason for me. His simple answer confused her. In Catherian culture, everything had a price. Everything was about honor, duty, or gaining advantage. But this human seemed to want nothing except to help. Other species have tried, Zara said. The Valdari have the best medical technology in the galaxy. They tried to help a wounded Catherian once. The armor rejected their treatment and both the warrior and the armor died in 3 days. I'm not Valdari, Jake said. I'm human. We do things differently. How differently? Jake thought for a moment. The Valdari probably tried to fix your armor like it was a machine. All procedures and protocols. But it's not a machine, is it? It's alive. Scared. Hurt. When something alive is hurt and scared, you have to be gentle. You have to go slow. You have to listen. Zara stared at him. No one had ever talked about bioarmor like that before. Even Catherians themselves treated armor maintenance as a necessary pain to endure. But Jake talked about it like he was talking about taking care of a pet or a child. The green liquid reached her feet now. Her armor's breathing was getting weaker. "If I let you try," Zara said slowly, "and you fail, I will die. But if I don't let you try, I will die anyway. Is that right?" "Probably," Jake said honestly. "But I don't plan to fail." Zara looked into his eyes. They were brown and warm, without the coldness she expected from aliens. There was something there she had never seen before when looking at non-Cytherians. It took her a moment to recognize what it was. Care. This human actually cared what happened to her. "All right," she said. "Try." Jake led Zara into his workshop. She had to duck under the doorway because of her height. Inside, the space was crowded but organized. Tools hung on the walls. Spare parts filled shelves. In one corner, a small garden grew under artificial lights. "Sit here," Jake said, pointing to a padded chair he had built himself. "It's strong enough for your weight." Zara sat down carefully. The chair held her easily. She was surprised by how comfortable it was. Most furniture on the station was made for smaller species. Humans were somewhere in the middle, but Jake had built this chair to fit anyone. "First, I need to understand what's happening," Jake said. He didn't move toward her armor yet. Instead, he pulled up another chair and sat facing her. "Tell me about your armor. How does it feel right now?" The question surprised Zara. "How does it feel?" "Yes, is it hot? Cold? Tight? Loose? Does it hurt in some places more than others?" No one had ever asked her this before. When Cytherian armor was damaged, the repair process was simple. The warrior would lie still while technicians worked. Pain was expected. Questions about feelings were not part of the process. "It feels scared," Zara said slowly, "like it doesn't understand what happened to it. The pain is worst here." She pointed to a large crack near her left shoulder. "And here." She touched her side where the green liquid was flowing most heavily. Jake nodded like this made perfect sense. "Is it having trouble breathing?" "Breathing?" Zara looked confused. "Watch," Jake said. He pointed to a section of her armor that was moving up and down slowly. "See how it moves? That's breathing. Bio-armor needs to exchange gases with the environment, just like you do. Is that movement normal?" Zara watched her own armor. She had never really noticed the breathing before. It was just something that happened. But now that Jake pointed it out, she could see it was too slow, too weak. "It's slower than usual," she admitted. "Okay. What about food? How does it eat? Food?" Zara was even more confused now. Jake smiled gently. "Everything alive needs food, right?" "Your armor is alive, so it must eat something. How does it get nutrition?" Zara thought about this. It takes what it needs from my blood. Through the connection points. Show me the connection points." Zara hesitated. The connection points were personal, private places where her nervous system linked with the armor's. But Jake's voice was so calm and professional that she found herself pointing them out. Small round areas where her skin touched the inner surface of the armor directly. "How many connection points do you have?" Jake asked. 12, Zara said. "Are they all working normally?" Zara concentrated. She could feel the connection through each point. Some were strong and clear. Others felt weak or fuzzy. "No, 3 of them feel wrong, weak." Jake nodded again. "That's part of the problem then. Your armor isn't getting enough nutrition through the damaged connections. It's like trying to eat through a broken straw." He stood up and went to his workbench. But instead of picking up tools, he started looking through bottles and containers. "I think I can help with that." "What are you doing?" Zara asked. "Making food for your armor," Jake said. "I work with biosystems sometimes. Hydroponic plants, bacterial cultures, that sort of thing. I've learned that most living things need the same basic nutrients. Proteins, carbohydrates, minerals, vitamins." He mixed liquids from different bottles into a clear container. The mixture turned light blue. "This won't replace what it gets from your blood, but it might help while we fix the connection points." "How will you give it this food?" Zara asked. Jake showed her a thin tube with a tiny needle at the end. "Very carefully. I'll inject small amounts into the areas where your armor is healthiest. The healthy parts can distribute it to the damaged parts." Zara felt a chill of fear. No one has ever injected anything into Cytherian armor before. "I know," Jake said. "But think about it. When you're sick, sometimes you need medicine, right? This is medicine for your armor." Jake brought the container and tube over to Zara's chair, but he didn't start working immediately. Instead, he knelt down so he was at her eye level. Before I do anything, I need you to tell me if something feels wrong, he said. If I hurt you or your armor, say stop. I'll stop immediately. This only works if we work together. This was completely different from how Catherian repairs worked. In her culture, the warrior endured while the technician worked. Communication during the process was seen as weakness. You want me to talk while you work? Zara asked. I need you to talk while I work, Jake said. You're the only one who can feel what your armor feels. Without your help, I'm just guessing. Jake started with the smallest possible injection. He found a healthy section of armor near Zara's elbow and carefully inserted the needle. How does that feel? Strange, Zara said. Not painful, just strange, like a tiny cold spot. Good or bad strange? Zara thought about it. Neutral strange. My armor doesn't seem upset by it. Jake injected the tiniest amount of the blue liquid. Immediately, the armor around the injection site became slightly brighter. The breathing motion in that area became a little stronger. Oh, Zara said with surprise. It likes that. Really? Jake smiled. How can you tell? The armor feels happier, more alive. Like when you drink water when you're very thirsty. Jake made several more tiny injections in healthy areas of the armor. Each time he asked Zara how it felt. Each time she reported that the armor seemed to like the treatment. After an hour of careful work, the armor's breathing was noticeably stronger. The green liquid had stopped flowing from some of the smaller cracks. Zara felt more alert and less tired. This is incredible, she said. How did you know this would work? Jake shrugged. I didn't know. I guessed. But I guessed based on what you told me about how your armor felt. That's the difference. What difference? Other species probably tried to fix your armor based on what they thought it needed. I'm trying to fix it based on what it actually needs. And the only way to know what it actually needs is to ask you. Zara was quiet for a long moment. In Catherian culture, we don't talk about what our armor needs. We just endure whatever must be done to maintain it. Why? Jake asked. Because warriors don't complain. Warriors don't show weakness. Jake looked at her seriously. Telling me when something hurts isn't complaining. It's helping me do my job better. And asking for what you need isn't weakness. It's smart. As Jake continued working, Zara found herself relaxing in ways she had never experienced during armor maintenance. The process was slow and gentle. Jake asked her opinion about everything. He explained what he was doing and why. When she said something felt uncomfortable, he immediately tried a different approach. For the first time in her life, Zara felt like her armor was being cared for, not just repaired. Hours passed in Jake's workshop. The station's artificial day cycle dimmed to simulate evening, but Jake kept working. He had fixed the smaller cracks in Zara's armor and restored nutrition flow to most areas, but the biggest damage remained. We need to work on the main connection point now, Jake said softly. The one near your spine, Zara tensed. The main connection point was where her nervous system linked most deeply with her armor. It was the most sensitive spot on her entire body. When that area was damaged, even Catherian technicians worked quickly to minimize pain. The connection was too important and too delicate for gentle treatment. That area is very sensitive, Zara said. Even small mistakes there can cause permanent damage. Jake nodded. I understand. That's why we're going to go extra slowly. Can you turn around so I can see the damage better? Zara turned in the chair. The main connection point was visible through a large crack in the armor near her spine. The area around it was swollen and bleeding green fluid heavily. Jake could see why this was the worst damage. It looked like something had hit her directly in that spot. What happened to you? Jake asked as he studied the injury. Raider attack, Zara said. 3 of their ships ambushed my patrol. We fought them off, but one of them had a new weapon. Some kind of bio-disruptor. It was designed to damage Catherian armor specifically. Jake frowned. Someone made a weapon just to hurt your people? Yes, the raiders have been studying us. Learning our weaknesses. That's terrible, Jake said. I'm sorry that happened to you. The sympathy in his voice surprised Zara. Other species usually saw Catherian warriors as dangerous enemies or useful allies. They didn't often see them as people who could be hurt and deserving of sympathy. Jake gathered different tools for this repair. Everything was smaller, more precise. He also prepared a different nutrition mixture, one that was designed specifically for nervous system support. Before I start, I need to know something, Jake said. Can you feel everything I do to the armor in this area? Yes, Zara said. The connection point makes armor and skin almost the same thing. What hurts the armor hurts me. Okay, then we do this together. I'll move very slowly. You tell me immediately if anything feels wrong. Not just painful. If anything feels weird or strange or different from what you expect. Jake began by cleaning around the damaged area with a soft cloth. Even this gentle touch made Zara stiffen. The connection point was incredibly sensitive. How does that feel? Jake asked. Uncomfortable, but not painful, Zara said. Like someone touching a bruise. Good. I'm going to keep cleaning, but I'll be even gentler. Jake's movements were so careful that Zara barely felt them. He worked like he was handling something precious and fragile. In a way, he was. This connection point was irreplaceable. If it was destroyed, Zara would never be able to bond with armor again. As Jake worked, Zara found herself watching his face in the reflection of a metal panel. His expression was completely focused, but not in the cold, distant way of most technicians. He looked worried about her, concerned about causing her pain. Jake, she said. Yes? Why are you being so gentle? Most technicians work as fast as possible to get through the painful parts quickly. Jake paused in his work. Because fast doesn't mean less pain. Fast just means the pain is intense and short. Slow means the pain is mild and longer. But with something this important, I'd rather take the time to do it right. He resumed cleaning. Besides, when someone is scared and hurt, being gentle helps them relax. When you relax, your body heals better. How do you know I'm scared? Zara asked. Because you're human enough, Jake said with a small smile. Fear is pretty universal. Any intelligent being would be scared in this situation. Catherians don't admit to fear. Then, Catherians miss out on getting the help they need when they're afraid. Jake finished cleaning and moved to the actual repair work. He needed to reconnect several damaged biochannels that carried information between Zara's nervous system and her armor. This was the most delicate part of the entire process. He prepared a tiny probe that would help guide the biochannels back into proper alignment. But before he used it, he stopped and looked at Zara. This next part is going to be the most sensitive, he said. I need to work directly with the neural pathways. You'll feel everything I do, probably more intensely than anything so far. Zara nodded. I understand. If you need me to stop, just say so. There's no shame in taking breaks. Jake positioned the probe near the main connection point. As soon as it touched the area, Zara gasped. The sensation was like electricity running through her entire body. Too much? Jake asked immediately. No, Zara said, though her voice was tight. Just intense. Jake began the most delicate work he had ever attempted. He guided damaged biochannels back into position one at a time. Each movement sent waves of sensation through Zara's body. Sometimes it was just strange tingling. Sometimes it was sharp discomfort. But Jake moved so slowly and carefully that none of it was unbearable. You're doing great, Jake said softly as he worked. Just breathe. Try to relax. After an hour of painstaking work, Jake was almost finished. Only one more biochannel needed to be reconnected. But this one was the deepest, closest to Zara's spinal cord. As he positioned his probe to reach it, Zara suddenly spoke. Please, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Be careful there. The words hung in the air between them. Jake stopped moving entirely. Zara realized what she had just said and felt shock wash over her. She had asked for gentleness. She had shown vulnerability to an alien. She had admitted that she needed care. In Catherian culture, this was unthinkable. I'm sorry, Zara said quickly. I shouldn't have said that. Warriors don't ask for... Hey, Jake said gently, cutting her off. Don't apologize. Thank you for telling me. That helps me do this better. He adjusted his approach, moving even more slowly and carefully than before. When someone trusts me enough to tell me they need extra care, that's not weakness. That's helping me help them. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes. She had never experienced this kind of response to vulnerability before. Instead of seeing her request as shameful weakness, Jake saw it as valuable information that helped him do his job better. In human culture, Jake said as he worked on the final connection, we have a saying. It takes strength to ask for help. Because asking for help means you trust someone enough to be honest about what you need. The final biochannel clicked into place. Immediately, Zara felt her armor's breathing become strong and regular. The green bleeding stopped completely. The connection points all felt clear and strong again. There, Jake said, sitting back. How does that feel? Zara moved carefully, testing the armor's responses. Everything felt better than it had in months, maybe years. Her armor felt healthy, happy, and completely bonded with her again. "It feels perfect," she said with wonder. "Better than perfect," Jake smiled. "Good. Your armor should stay healthy now. But if you ever have problems again, you know where to find me." Zara stood up slowly. She felt strong and complete again. But more than that, she felt something new. She felt cared for. News traveled fast on Nexus Point Station. By the next morning, everyone knew that a human had successfully repaired Catherian bioarmor. But the details of how Jake had done it spread even faster. Zara sat in the station's main cafeteria, eating breakfast. Her armor gleamed with health, moving with smooth, natural breathing. Other beings in the cafeteria kept staring at her. Some had never seen Catherian armor look so vibrant. "Is it true?" asked Nix, a small blue-skinned trader who often gossiped with anyone who would listen. "Did the human really fix your armor?" "Yes," Zara said simply, "but how?" Nix pressed. "Everyone knows aliens can't work on Catherian biotech. It's too complex, too dangerous." Zara thought about Jake's gentle hands, his constant questions about how she felt, his willingness to stop whenever she needed him to. "He was careful," she said. More beings gathered around her table. Word was spreading that the famous Catherian warrior was actually talking about her repair experience. Usually Catherians kept such things private. "Careful how?" asked Dr. Yenth, the station's Valdari medical officer. "We Valdari have the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy. We tried to help a wounded Catherian once. Our precision instruments and computer-guided procedures failed completely." "Jake didn't use computers," Zara said. "He used his hands. And he listened to me." "Listened to you?" Dr. Yenth looked confused. "What do you mean?" "He asked me how the armor felt. If things hurt, if something felt wrong, then he changed what he was doing based on what I told him." The gathered beings exchanged glances. This was a completely different approach from anything they had heard of before. "But that's so primitive," Dr. Yenth said. "Modern medicine uses sensors and scanners to determine what's wrong. We don't rely on patient descriptions. They're too subjective, too unreliable." "Maybe that's why you failed," Zara said quietly. Dr. Yenth looked offended. "Our methods are scientifically proven." Your methods work on machines," Zara interrupted. "Jake treated my armor like it was alive." "Because it is alive." Across the station, Jake was having his own conversations. Station Commander Liu had called him to her office to discuss what had happened. "Jake, what you did was incredible," Commander Liu said. "But we need to understand how you did it. The Catherian government is sending representatives to investigate." "Investigate what?" Jake asked. "Whether this changes things. For centuries, Catherians have been isolated in medical emergencies. Their bioarmor was too specialized for anyone else to help with. But if humans can work with their technology," Jake understood. "You think this might change how Catherians interact with other species?" "It might change everything," Commander Liu said. "But first, we need to understand exactly what you did differently." That afternoon, 3 Catherian warriors arrived on the station. They were tall and imposing, their armor dark and formal. Zara met them at the docking port. "Zara of the 3rd Battle Group," the lead warrior said formally. "I am Commander Kane. We have come to investigate reports of unauthorized alien contact with your bioarmor." "It wasn't unauthorized," Zara said. "I gave permission." "You gave permission for an alien to work on sacred bioarmor?" Commander Kane looked shocked. "That is against all protocols." "I was dying," Zara said simply. "My armor was dying. The human saved us both." Commander Kane examined Zara's armor carefully. Even he had to admit it looked healthier than most armor he had seen. "Show us this human," he commanded. They found Jake in his workshop working on a broken water recycler. He looked up as the 4 Catherians entered his small space. The workshop suddenly felt very crowded. "You are the human who worked on Catherian bioarmor," Commander Kane said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir," Jake said politely. "I'm Jake Martinez." "Explain your methods." Jake wiped his hands on his rag and thought about how to answer. "I listened to what Zara told me about how her armor felt. Then I tried to give it what it needed. That's all?" Another warrior, Commander Ross, sounded skeptical. "Well, I also went very slowly and asked permission before doing anything major, and I tried to be gentle." The 3 visiting warriors looked at each other. Commander Kane spoke again. "In Catherian culture, armor maintenance is a duty to be endured. Pain is expected. Weakness is not tolerated." "With respect, sir," Jake said, "I don't think asking for what you need is weakness. I think it's smart communication. Explain. Jake gestured toward his workshop. When I fix anything, I need information. If I'm fixing a machine, I use diagnostic tools to get that information. But Zara's armor isn't just a machine. It's alive and it's connected to her. She could tell me things no diagnostic tool could detect. Commander Ross stepped forward. You're saying that the warrior's input was necessary for the repair? Not just necessary, essential. Without Zara telling me how things felt, I would have been working blind. Zara spoke up. He asked me to tell him if anything felt wrong. When I did, he immediately changed his approach. He made the process about caring for me and my armor, not just completing a repair. You told him about discomfort? Commander Kane asked Zara with disbelief. Yes. And you? He turned to Jake. You modified your procedures based on her complaints? They weren't complaints, Jake said firmly. They were important medical information. If a patient tells a doctor that something hurts, the doctor listens. That's how good medicine works. The visiting Catherian spent the next several hours observing Jake's workshop and asking detailed questions about his methods. They examined Zara's armor repeatedly, unable to find any flaws in the repair work. Finally, Commander Kane pulled Zara aside for a private conversation. Your armor has never looked better, he admitted. But what you allowed this human to do, it goes against everything we've been taught about maintaining warrior dignity. Does it? Zara asked. Or does it show that there are different kinds of strength? What do you mean? It took courage for me to tell Jake when something felt wrong. It took trust to let him work on my most sensitive connection points. And it took wisdom to accept help when I needed it. Commander Kane was quiet for a long time. The council will need to discuss this, he said finally. There's something else, Zara said. Other species on the station have been asking Jake about his methods. They want to understand how humans approach healing and repair. Why? Because they've never seen anything like it. Dr. Yenth said that Jake's approach achieved better results than advanced Valdari medical technology. The Centauri engineers want to know how he diagnoses problems in living systems. Everyone is curious about human methods. That evening, Jake found himself surrounded by representatives from various species, all asking questions about human approaches to medicine and repair. He tried to explain concepts like bedside manner, patient communication, and the importance of treating the whole person, not just the problem. In human culture, Jake explained to the fascinated group, we have a saying, medicine is as much art as science. We use science to understand what's wrong, but we use art, empathy, communication, intuition, to figure out how to fix it. As the discussions continued late into the night, Zara realized that something important was happening. Jake's gentle approach to fixing her armor had opened a door to something bigger. Other species were beginning to understand that humans had developed different ways of solving problems, ways that focused on care and communication rather than just technical skill. And at the center of it all was the simple moment when she had asked him to be careful, and he had thanked her for it. 3 months later, Jake's workshop had changed completely. What started as a small maintenance bay had grown into the busiest medical and repair facility on Nexus Point Station. Beings from dozens of species came seeking help, not just for technical problems but for the uniquely human experience of being truly cared for while being healed. Jake had help now. The station had officially created a new position called Biotech Specialist, specifically for him. But more importantly, other humans had arrived to learn his methods. Dr. Amy Carter, a human doctor, had set up a medical clinic next to Jake's workshop. Engineer Ben Foster had brought expertise in biomechanical systems. Together, they formed the first human healing center in this part of the galaxy. Patient in Bay 3 needs attention, Dr. Carter called to Jake. Crystari bio-implant rejection. The patient is scared and in pain. Jake nodded and gathered his tools. Crystari bio-implants were notoriously difficult to work with, but Jake had developed techniques for dealing with them. The key, as always, was listening to the patient. The Crystari in Bay 3 was young, probably barely an adult. His bio-implant, which helped regulate his breathing in different atmospheric conditions, was swollen and infected. Traditional Crystari medicine would require removing the implant completely, leaving him unable to travel between worlds. Hello? Jake said gently, pulling up a chair next to the patient's bed. I'm Jake. Dr. Carter asked me to take a look at your implant. Can you tell me how you're feeling? The young Christari looked surprised. You want to know how I feel? Of course. You're the one with the implant. You know better than anyone how it's supposed to work and what's wrong with it now. For the next hour, Jake worked with the same careful patience he had shown Zara. He asked questions, listened to answers, and adjusted his approach based on what the patient told him. When the young Christari said something felt uncomfortable, Jake immediately tried a different technique. By the end of the session, the implant was functioning normally again. More importantly, the patient felt heard and cared for throughout the entire process. How do you do that? Dr. Carter asked Jake afterward. The Christari medical texts say that implant rejection cases always require surgery. You fixed it with nutrition adjustments and gentle manipulation. The text probably assumed the patient won't communicate during treatment, Jake said, but he told me exactly what was wrong. The implant wasn't rejecting his body. It was undernourished and stressed. Once we fed it properly and reduced the stress, it settled right back into place. News of human healing methods had spread far beyond Nexus Point. The Catherian Council had spent weeks debating Zara's experience. The final decision surprised everyone. Commander Kane arrived at the station with official news. The Council has voted, he announced to Jake and Zara. Catherian warriors will be allowed to seek human assistance for armor-related medical issues. Furthermore, we want to establish a formal partnership to study human healing methods. What changed their minds? Jake asked. Results, Commander Kane said simply. In the 3 months since your treatment of Zara, 17 other Catherian warriors have requested human assistance with armor problems. All 17 cases were resolved successfully using human methods. 0 cases were resolved successfully using traditional Catherian methods during the same period. Zara smiled, and the warriors who received human treatment report significantly better overall health and armor integration than those who received traditional treatment. The Council cannot ignore such clear evidence. But the biggest changes weren't happening in medical bays or repair shops. They were happening in how different species understood each other. Dr. Yenth, the Valdari medical officer, had begun incorporating human communication techniques into his practice. I never realized how much information patients could provide, he admitted to Jake. I was so focused on my instruments that I forgot to listen to the person I was treating. The Centauri engineers had started asking their clients how repairs felt instead of just following standard procedures. The Alarian traders had begun checking whether their customers felt comfortable with business arrangements instead of just closing deals quickly. Most surprisingly, other humans started arriving on Nexus Point. Word had reached Earth that human approaches to problem solving were being valued by alien species. Scientists, doctors, engineers, and counselors came to study how human empathy and communication could be applied to interspecies cooperation. We're accidentally teaching the galaxy about emotional intelligence, Dr. Carter said to Jake one evening as they watched the sunset through the station's main viewport. Is that a bad thing? Jake asked. No, it's a wonderful thing. But it's funny that it started with you fixing someone's armor. Jake laughed. I still think about that moment when Zara asked me to be careful. It was such a simple thing to say, but it changed everything. Speaking of Zara, she had become something of a celebrity among Catherians. She traveled between worlds, teaching other warriors that asking for help wasn't weakness. She demonstrated that vulnerability and strength could exist together. Jake, Zara said, entering the workshop where he was cleaning up for the day. I have news. Good news or bad news? Good news. The Catherian Council wants to invite you to our home world. They want you to teach our medical technicians your methods. Jake paused in his cleaning. They want me to visit the Catherian homeworld? Yes, you would be the first non-Catherian ever invited there for medical purposes. When? Next month, if you're willing. Jake looked around his workshop, now expanded into 3 connected bays. Human and alien technicians worked side by side, treating patients from across the galaxy. The walls were covered with thank you messages in dozens of languages. What do you think? Zara asked. Are you willing to teach an entire world how to be careful? Jake smiled. When you put it like that, how can I say no? That night, Jake sent a message back to Earth. He tried to explain what had happened over the past few months, how a simple armor repair had turned into something much larger. I've learned something important, he wrote to his family. The things that make us human. Our empathy, our willingness to listen, our ability to care about others, these aren't weaknesses in a galaxy full of advanced technology. They're our greatest strengths. He paused and looked out at the stars visible through his workshop window. Ships from dozens of worlds were docked at the station. Many of their crews had come specifically to experience human approaches to healing and problem-solving. Turns out the galaxy was waiting for someone to ask them how they felt, Jake wrote. They just needed someone to care enough to listen to the answer. 3 weeks later, as Jake prepared for his trip to the Catherian homeworld, he received a message that made him laugh. It was from a young human engineer named Lisa Kim, fresh out of Earth's Technical Academy. "I heard about what you're doing out there," her message said, "teaching aliens that it's okay to ask for help and that healing should involve caring for the whole person, not just fixing the broken part. I want to learn how to do that too. Can I come help?" Jake sent back a simple reply. "Come on out. The galaxy needs all the careful people it can get." As he sealed the message and prepared for his journey, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that day when Zara stumbled into his workshop, bleeding and proud and hurt. A simple request to be careful had opened up new possibilities for understanding between species. And it all started because someone had asked for what they needed, and someone else had listened.